The scorching Arizona sun burned across the endless desert, turning the rocky land into a sea of shimmering heat. In the late 1800s, young cowboy Ethan Carter guided his chestnut horse through a lonely stretch of Arizona territory, carrying a small supply of food and tools toward a distant cattle ranch. Dust clung to his weathered boots, and sweat soaked the collar of his faded brown shirt beneath a worn leather vest. The land was silent, except for the wind and the steady rhythm of his horse's hooves. Travelers rarely crossed this dangerous route alone, but Ethan believed he could reach the next settlement before sunset, if fortune remained on his side. The desert had a way of changing without warning. A frightened rattlesnake suddenly slithered across the narrow trail, startling Ethan's horse. The animal reared high into the air, throwing its rider violently onto the hard ground. Ethan's head struck a large rock, and his body rolled down the edge of a dry riverbed. His horse galloped away in panic, disappearing beyond the hills. Alone beneath the blazing sky, Ethan lay unconscious with a deep cut above his forehead and bruises covering his arms. Every passing hour stole more of his strength as the relentless heat drained the last moisture from his body. Far away, an Apache woman named Ayana walked quietly through the desert gathering medicinal plants used by her people for generations. She wore traditional buckskin clothing decorated with hand-stitched beadwork, while her long dark hair was tied neatly behind her shoulders. She moved with calm confidence, reading the land as easily as others read a map. While searching near the dry riverbed, she noticed disturbed sand, broken brush, and fresh hoofprints. Experience told her that someone had been injured nearby. Following the trail carefully, she discovered Ethan lying motionless beneath the burning sun, his face pale and his breathing weak. Ayana understood that leaving the stranger behind would almost certainly mean death before nightfall. Although many settlers feared Apache people and often treated them with suspicion, her family had always believed that saving a life came before old hatred. She hurried to a hidden spring, known only to a few members of her tribe, and filled a carved wooden cup with cool, clear water. Returning quickly, she gently lifted Ethan's head and carefully moistened his dry lips before giving him small sips that would not overwhelm his weakened body. She cleaned the blood from his forehead, using fresh water and crushed healing herbs into a soothing paste, wrapping the wound with clean strips of buckskin. Several long moments passed before Ethan slowly opened his eyes. The bright sunlight blurred his vision, and at first he believed he was dreaming. As his sight cleared, he saw the face of a young Apache woman kneeling beside him, her calm eyes watching carefully for any sign of pain. Feeling the cool water against his lips, he struggled to speak through his exhaustion. "You gave me water when I was unconscious?" he whispered with disbelief. Ayana answered only with a quiet nod, her expression gentle but cautious. She knew that many wounded strangers responded with fear before gratitude, yet Ethan's eyes showed only confusion and appreciation. Before Ethan could ask another question, Ayana's attention shifted toward the distant hills. The wind carried faint sounds that most people would never notice, but years of living on the frontier had sharpened her senses. Fresh horse tracks, broken branches, and drifting dust warned her that armed riders were approaching. They were ruthless men searching for hidden Apache camps, caring little for anyone caught in their path. Without wasting a second, Ayana helped the weakened cowboy struggle to his feet. She whistled softly, and Ethan's frightened horse emerged from behind nearby rocks where it had wandered after the accident. Supporting Ethan with surprising strength, she guided him onto the saddle. As the shadows of approaching riders grew closer across the desert floor, Ayana led the horse toward a narrow canyon, known only to her people, hoping they could disappear before their dangerous pursuers arrived. Before sunrise the following morning, Ayana quietly led Ethan across hidden trails that only the Apache people knew. The narrow paths wound through rocky canyons, dry washes, and thick desert brush, keeping them far from the riders searching the frontier. Although Ethan was still weak from his injuries, Ayanna never allowed him to lose hope. She found fresh water, gathered healing herbs, and patiently treated the wound on his head whenever they stopped to rest. By late afternoon, they reached the edge of Ethan's ranch. Without asking for thanks or a reward, Ayanna simply made sure he could safely reach his cabin. Ethan turned to thank the woman who had saved his life, but she had already disappeared into the wilderness as quietly as she had arrived, leaving behind only faint footprints in the desert sand. Several days later, Ethan had regained enough strength to return to work around the ranch. While delivering supplies to a nearby trading post, he overheard a troubling conversation between two frightened travelers. A wealthy land company had hired ruthless gunmen to force several Apache families from their homeland. The men believed a hidden spring deep in the desert could supply enough water for a profitable cattle operation. They had captured scouts, burned camps, and threatened innocent families, but one woman refused to reveal the spring's location. As Ethan listened more carefully, he realized the brave woman they described was Ayanna. Remembering the kindness she had shown a complete stranger, he knew he could never stand by while she faced danger alone. Ethan returned to his ranch and gathered 4 trusted cowboys, known for their honesty rather than their skill. With a gun, they packed food, blankets, ropes, medical supplies, and enough water for several days before riding into the desert. Guided by the memories of the trail Ayanna had shown him, Ethan eventually discovered signs of recent struggle: broken branches, fresh horse tracks, and abandoned campfires. Near a narrow canyon, the group spotted the armed land grabbers guarding several frightened Apache families. Ayanna stood proudly among them, refusing to betray her people despite repeated threats. Ethan quietly organized his friends, and together they used the rocky landscape to surprise the gunmen from several directions. Outnumbered and caught off guard, the attackers quickly surrendered and fled, abandoning their cruel plan. With the danger finally gone, silence returned to the desert. Apache elders stepped forward to thank Ethan and his companions, recognizing that they had risked everything for people they barely knew. Ayanna smiled warmly, seeing the same man she had rescued now standing courageously beside her people. The elders invited the cowboys to the hidden spring, where crystal-clear water flowed beneath ancient cottonwood trees that had sheltered generations of Apache families. Ethan promised that the location would remain a secret forever and offered to help protect the surrounding land from anyone who tried to claim it through greed or violence. Over time, the ranchers and the Apache community built trust, traded fairly, and helped one another survive the hardships of frontier life. Ethan never forgot the day a compassionate Apache woman had placed a cup of cool water to his lips when he was helpless. That simple act of kindness changed not only his fate, but also the future of 2 communities, proving that in the Wild West, courage, honor, and compassion could overcome fear, prejudice, and hatred, creating friendships strong enough to last for generations. If this story touched your heart, remember that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change someone's life forever. Ethan survived because one courageous Apache woman chose compassion instead of fear, and that single moment created a friendship that changed the future of 2 communities. In the Wild West, true heroes were not always the fastest with a gun. They were the ones brave enough to do what was right when no one was watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Wild West Stories for more emotional Western tales filled with courage, honor, and unforgettable adventures. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments. What would you have done if you had found an injured stranger alone in the desert? Your thoughts and support help keep these timeless stories alive. Until the next adventure, thank you for watching, and may kindness always guide your journey across every frontier.